I found keto. When I started it, all my inflammation went away. My arthritis rescinded. I lost a lot of weight. Fatty liver went away. My cholesterol went up and up and up. It went up to 450.
However, there's a big thing that happens.
I had a stroke.
I'm here with Germaine Schweibinz, and she has quite a story. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you did
Okay.
good.
Where's that name from?
Germany.
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 That's good. Did your parents immigrate here? Or?
Grandparents.
Grandparents. Okay, so they came a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Wonderful. Okay, so let's get into it. Tell me, just start from the beginning. Tell me your story. What
Okay.
brings you here?
I had very bad osteoarthritis, and I researched what could help with that. And I found keto. And that was back in 2018.
Okay.
And there was not very many people on keto at that point. Really where I got a lot of my information was from the two keto dudes that podcast, and they were like my Bible basically. When I started it, all my inflammation went away. My arthritis rescinded, and I lost a lot of weight. My fatty liver went away, and I had nothing but great things to say about it.
And were you trying to lose weight, or were you just trying to fix your arthritis?
I mainly wanted my arthritis. That's the reason I went on keto. The losing weight was a nice bonus.
No, good. So that was 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And so how old are you now?
I'm 66.
66. Okay. So you were what, 59 at that point?
Yeah.
Okay. So you had pretty bad arthritis even just in your 50s, huh? How long have you been suffering from that?
A long time, probably 10, 15 years.
Oh, wow. So going back into your 40s, you were having
Right.
arthritis problems. Wow.
Right.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see people in the ER with arthritis problems, even, yeah, again, in their 40s and 50s, and it only gets worse from there for a lot of people.
Right. It was like a miracle. I mean, I could jump out of bed in the morning and I felt great. You can't put a price on that. That just was everything to me.
So keto like really improved your quality of life.
100%.
That's great. So what happened from that point?
My cholesterol went up and up and up. It went from, they thought it was bad at like 180 back then, and it went up to 450.
Wow, wow. So it went way high.
Yeah. And, somewhere along the line, they said I had familial, uh, which I didn't have because I didn't have it before.
Mm-hmm.
And they put me on statins, and every statin hurt me. Two put me in the hospital.
Really?
Yeah.
Describe that. What happened there?
I believe it was just a derivative of niacin,
Okay.
and my gallbladder distended 6 inches.
Whoa, 6 inches.
They had me prepped for surgery.
Yeah, I bet.
That was one day after I took it, and they had a shift change. And I said, I just started taking this medicine yesterday, and the guy said, go home. And it went away.
Wow.
Then I said, I'm not taking any more statins. So then I tried Zydia and had the same thing, muscle problems. They all hurt muscles in my body. I was trying to hold something and I lost control of my arms and it fell. I just lost control. So I didn't stay on. I was on that for like a week. Then they swore that Praluent, given the shots in the stomach, did not have any of the side effects that statins did. So I was in physical therapy for 3 months because I couldn't move my shoulder. They swore that it wasn't the Praluent. And the day I went off it, it went away. I mean, it was fully gone in a week, but I felt better the next day. So I said, I'm not taking any more of these.
It really becomes a quality of life issue when, especially the thing that you were trying to fix, your arthritis, which was pain every single day, and then you do keto, your cholesterol goes way up, and then they're like, well, great for keto, but you need to be on these statins, and you start taking the statins, and everything hurts again. It kind of is completely backtracking for you.
Right. And I did a lot of research, and when they were doing the study for the lean mass hyper-responders, I signed up for that, but I was rejected because I was taking red yeast rice. So I didn't get to be in there on that.
Got
But I
it.
realized that's what I was and researched that quite a bit. But the doctors didn't want to hear anything about that.
Yeah, yeah. So for those who don't know, red yeast rice is basically kind of like a natural statin cholesterol lowering supplement that people take. When you were taking that, were you having any symptoms?
If I did, they were minor enough that I could live with it.
And did you notice if it lowered your LDL?
No, it didn't.
Okay, so you're taking a supplement, didn't do its effect.
Right.
No ill effects from it, but it didn't have the intended effect of lowering your LDL. Okay, so from there, I'm going to go into some of the labs that you actually have sent me here. So I see back in 2018, this is March of 2018. It looks like your cholesterol, yeah, your LDL actually had gone down, you mentioned, to
Yeah.
133. Your HDL was 44, and your triglycerides were 81, which is down by 52 points. That was 2018 that you started keto?
Yes.
Okay. And then looking at your labs prior to that, I see actually in 2017, it's interesting. You started keto when? 2018?
18. Yeah.
Okay, so your LDL in 2017 was actually a little bit high, 150. And then your triglycerides are considerably high, 133. Your HDL was on the lower side, 52. And here's a
Mhm.
key thing, your VLDL was 27. So that's pretty dang high. That's really indicative of some insulin resistance going on. And you were obese at that time, or
Yeah. Yes.
what would you say your BMI roughly was around then?
Probably about 30.
About 30 in 2017. What is it
Yeah.
now?
I think it's 27.
Okay, good. So that's a pretty good drop off there.
Yeah. Well, I gained weight. I was probably 24 and I
Mhm.
had a hysterectomy. And after that, I gained weight.
Oh, yep. It's funny because people always talk about calories in versus calories out versus insulin resistance and whatnot in terms of weight gain. But the funny thing is people just neglect the fact that hormones play a role.
Yeah.
And you have your hysterectomy and you immediately start gaining weight. You lost tissue, but you started gaining weight,
Right.
right? Because your hormones are affected by that.
Right.
And I think a lot of people just, for whatever reason, want to neglect that side of the equation of
It's
how your
it's
hormones.
because of that survey.
Yeah,
That was it the HERS? That study. I mean, that's a different point. I mean, since the hysterectomy, I also was diagnosed with IC.
really.
And I researched it and I found out that if I went on hormones, I think you posted it. I listened to Peter Attia and he was talking to the female gynecologist
Hmm.
and you posted something about that on one of your sites. And I listened to that and she said that going on hormones, it cured the IC,
Wow. So describe what IC is.
interstitial cystitis.
Okay.
I was diagnosed with that 2 months after the hysterectomy.
Hmm.
And it had very, burning when you urinate, back pain, um, just a lot of discomfort, and you feel like you have to go to the bathroom every 5 minutes.
Oh yeah. So cystitis, for people don't know, it's inflammation of the bladder. So this is a very painful, very uncomfortable condition. It can lead to increased bladder infections and things like that, but it's just painful and miserable. And you were able to fix that pretty quickly after being on the hormones, huh?
Yeah, I went on hormones. As soon as I went on the hormones, it went away.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so you went on keto. Your cholesterol, your LDL was a little bit high prior to keto. Looks like, but you had some obvious insulin resistance going on. Then you went on keto. Looks like your HDL and LDL corrected actually pretty quickly. By 2019, your HDL had gone up to 90, your VLDL down to 10, your triglycerides down to 50, but your LDL went up to 265. And that's, I'm sure, when the doctors were just screaming their heads off at you. You need to be on the statin right now.
Right.
And obviously, when you started these statins, your quality of life immediately went down with the pain, the shoulder pain, the muscle pain. You were trying to fix those pain issues from before, from your arthritis, and now all of a sudden the pain's coming back. So for you, you were like, no way, I can't tolerate these statins. I'm just going to stick with this diet. So it sounds like you've had a CAC score because you're concerned about your heart disease, right?
Right.
And you had that back in 2012 initially.
Yes, originally.
Okay. And I think it was 90 back then.
Right.
And you'd been tracking it every several years. And you
Right.
were getting not even just getting a CAC score, but you were getting like a CT angiogram, correct?
No, it was just CAC.
Okay, just a CAC. All right. So yeah, looking at your heart, your CAC scans that you've done. Now, did your doctor want these done, or were you requesting them?
The when I did the first one, I got it. It was a Groupon. It's like a coupon to get a test, and I
Wow.
and I went and did that, and I was like, oh, okay. And I researched that a little bit, and then whenever my cholesterol went up is whenever they doc in 17, whenever they said, okay, we want you to start going on statins,
Hmm.
and I did it again, and
Okay.
then I did it in 19. That was another one that I did. No, 19 was another doctor.
Hmm.
2 and 21 were Groupons again. I got a package so I could get them. That's why I had two that year.
Hmm.
And I started taking, I was researching how to reduce this. And I believe it was Ivor Cummings I was listening to. And he recommended this product that he helped design. And I started going on that right after I had the 2921 scan,
What product was that?
CX8.
CX8. Okay. So
Yeah.
CX8 has um, a bunch of different things in it. So the big two things it has are vitamin D3 and K2. I see, and a lot of people, including Dr. William Davis, recommends like if you're trying to reverse your heart disease, that you use vitamin K2, vitamin D3, magnesium, vitamin C. This is kind of the general, um, you know, cardiac disease reversal by supplement route that
Right.
people take. And so, how long have you been taking these supplements?
CX8, I started in 21. And then 2022, I added berberine to it
Mm-hmm.
and the natto venia.
Ah, so in 22, you added berberine.
Yes.
So, for a lot of people who don't realize, berberine is actually a kind of a natural metformin. It helps lower your blood glucose, in short. So, looking at your calcium scores here, they have trended up and up and up and up and up and up until they just plummet, which is kind of unheard of, actually, that your calcium score can drop as much as this did. So you had gone up, you'd started out in 2016 at 106, and I believe 2012 at 90.
Hmm.
And then you started keto in 2019 or 2018. Your CAC went up to 154, then 251, then 330. And you're thinking, I'm sure by 21, holy crap, this is getting bad, right?
Right.
You're probably getting pretty scared.
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine so. I mean, if you're looking at your, one of the indicators of heart disease just kind of go up and up and up, what were you thinking at that time? Were you thinking like, holy crap, my LDL is really concerning?
Yeah. I mean, that's when I started listening to whatever I could and researching whatever I could to see what I could possibly do on my end.
Were you
You
actively trying to lower your LDL, or were you just like, I'm sticking with keto because this is helping my quality of life, but I am concerned about my heart disease?
yeah, that's exactly it.
I imagine it's a really tough balance to strike because you go on keto, you're feeling great, you've lost weight, your inflammation's down, you're jumping out of bed like you never have in years, but you're seeing your LDL go up and you're seeing your CAC climb. But you decided you're just gonna stick to your guns and you're gonna supplement to try to see if you can get this thing resolved. So fast forward, that was 21 with your highest CAC of 330. 2 years later, it is at 310. This is like a little bit of a drop off there, not quite a, was that an 8% drop off?
Right.
Which I'm sure for you was pretty, you know, comforting. Like, hey, at least, maybe that's roughly the same, but I'm not increasing.
Right.
Where before you're having huge increases, but now in 2023, it's stabilized, it looks like. And then fast forward, so a couple of years later to April of this year, and you get a CAC scan and it comes back at 92, which is like, just again, unheard of. That is heart disease reversal. And how are you feeling by this point?
I felt fantastic. I said, say that again, please. I said, you said I said my score was a 92, and I was so thrilled.
Really? And was this at the same location you've done it previously?
No, this was a brand new doctor because I was going through cardiologists really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Kind
Okay.
of,
Were they firing you or were you firing them?
kind of both.
Yeah, I imagine so. A lot of butting heads there, huh? So when this doctor saw this score and compared to your other scores, what was their response?
He said, well, you're doing good. I'll see you in a year.
Well, yeah, he's like, wow, okay. He didn't seem particularly surprised by it, or is this a functional medicine doctor, or
No, it was he's a regular cardiologist, but he didn't ask me how I did it. He just said, well, keep on doing what you're doing.
wow. you know, uh, the lack of curiosity in healthcare or in medicine just is bizarre to me. I would think a doctor, like a cardiologist, sees a giant drop in calcium score and would be like, "Whoa, how the heck did you do that? What have you been doing? Your LDL is still sky high. Your LDL now. We'll rewind a little bit here for those of you who don't realize her LDL during this time has trended in the 300s and 400s. By the time she had this calcium score that had dropped enormously, her LDL was 348 and basically had been that way in that range ballpark, going up to even 451 during the previous 5 years. Your HDL was 56, your triglycerides are 56. So that's a 1-to-1 triglyceride to HDL ratio, which means you have really substantially improved your insulin sensitivity. And again, you're feeling good.
Right.
However, there's a big thing that happens. What happens?
I had a stroke.
A stroke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
that
scary,
really
huh?
scared me. Very scary. I didn't realize, I knew I had the plaque around my heart. I didn't know I had it in my brain.
And that's the thing about atherosclerosis that people don't realize. It doesn't just happen in the heart, it happens everywhere. It happens in your neck. I mean, we know about that because we do carotid scans, but it happens in your brain as well. And a lot of times on CT scans, you can see calcification in the brain. Other people don't realize it happens, in your arteries in your legs as well. When people get atherosclerosis in your legs, you can actually have an infarct in your leg. In the hospital, we call it a cold leg, where somebody comes in and they're like, my leg hurts like crazy. It's like turning bluish. What's going on here? And it turns out the iliac or femoral arteries can actually have a clot that blocks off the blood flow to your leg, just like it would block it off to your heart or your brain. So, even though you were reversing your atherosclerosis in your heart, you were probably if you're reversing it there, you're probably reversing it in your brain as well, but it still exists, which is the problem.
Right.
Even though you're doing all the right things, it seems, right? Because we have objective information telling us that you are getting healthier. You still are at risk whenever you have atherosclerosis. So, describe for me what happened with the stroke.
I was bending over in this room working, and I got vertigo, and the room started spinning. And I sat up and I went to reach for something on the desk and move my hand up and down. It wouldn't go. It was going back and forth like this. And I couldn't make it go down. And I called my son and said, I'm having a vertigo attack. And he helped me to the couch. And when I was trying to walk, my right leg started like going out to the side. I couldn't walk properly. And I laid on the couch and I said, stroke never entered my mind. I assumed it was vertigo because that's what started it. The room was spinning. And I took the vertigo medicine and I laid on the couch. Half an hour later, I was fine. I had, when I did the massage, I cooked dinner. I worked for 4 more hours, went to bed. After that vertigo medicine wore off, I had the same things. My leg was cramping. My right leg was cramping, and I went to reach for some water, and my right arm wouldn't. It fell on my face, and I said, "Oh my goodness, this vertigo's happening again." And I went to the bathroom, and my leg was dragging, my right leg. And I went back to sleep. I Stroke never entered my mind. And when I got up in the morning, I saw that the right pupil was really large. I said, okay, I think this is something I need to go to the hospital for. So I went to the hospital.
Wow. That's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Happens. Um, so one thing I really want to point out to anybody who's watching this, if you have symptoms like this, where your right side of your body doesn't work, you have a sudden onset dizziness, you know, your right leg is dragging. These are classic stroke symptoms. Germaine, it didn't even enter her mind that this was a stroke. She thought it was vertigo. And I see this happen over and over and over again in the emergency department. People have symptoms like this, and it's kind of hard for somebody like me. I've worked in emergency medicine since I was 18. I'm 41 now. So for me, like I go, oh, well, it's obviously a stroke. The right side of your body isn't working. But this is not obvious to most people. Very intelligent, normal people think, oh, I'm really tired right now, or I'm just kind of dizzy, or I've been sick lately, or something. There's always some sort of way of kind of disregarding the symptoms that you're having. If you are having sudden onset dizziness, can't move the right side of your body, slurred speech, your arm is not working like it's supposed to, sudden onset, really bad headache, go to the hospital or call 911. You're having a stroke. I mean, just assume you're having one until proven otherwise. There are other things that can mimic strokes, like low blood sugar can do that, or even we have these things called like complex migraines. However, you can't determine that as a layperson, or as even as a nurse. Like if I had a symptom like that, I couldn't just go, oh, I think I'm having a complex migraine. No, I'm having a stroke until proven otherwise. This is so important because we can give you a medication in the hospital that can reverse your stroke, but it has to be given within the 6 hours of those symptoms starting. Outside of that window, we can't do that. So that's why it's really, 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 really important that whenever you're feeling symptoms like this, you immediately go to the hospital or call 911. Now, Germaine, having come out on the other side of this, has full function. And I would say that the steps that you've taken before now to improve your diet, lose weight, improve your insulin resistance, reverse your atherosclerosis have undoubtedly helped your outcome here. So many people have strokes and end up having lifelong debilitating disease, or they just completely lose function of their right side and they never regain it. You're sitting here talking to me on video chat, clearly able to use your hands. You don't seem to have any. Do you have any weakness at all on your right side?
No, not at all.
Wow. So let me tell you something about healthcare. This is a good outcome. This is a fantastic outcome to have an event and to come out of it on the other side without any sort of debilitation or disability. This is, there are plenty of people that will say, well, your LDL was very, very high, and that's why you had this stroke, and you should have been on statins no matter the symptoms. I think that's crap, frankly. Your quality of life was suffering. You
Right.
found something that was helping you feel better. And let's just say that for the sake of the argument that the LDL being so high was the cause of the stroke. All the things that you were doing to improve your health made the outcome of this event so much better than it could have been. And for me, that's a big, big takeaway here. And I think, like looking at you and knowing that you had a stroke as a 66-year-old woman and don't have any sort of disability from it. And this was just a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Germaine and I connected on one of the Facebook groups when she posted about her calcium scan dropping. And I got in contact with her. I was like, oh, wow, I really want to interview her. And so I got in contact with her. And roughly a week after that, she had the stroke, which, puts a little bit of a damper on the conversation, but actually, I think is a great opportunity to educate people as to
I want
what.
to say one more thing. I did have the stroke pass my mind in the night when I woke up, but I thought it was on the left side. I said it's on the right side, so it can't be a stroke. I was totally missed. My mind thought strokes happen on the left side.
Oh wow, yeah. Again, we all come up, and I think we're all susceptible to this. We all want to downplay something going on, right? Like I know I do. If I'm like, I have this pain in my side. I think I'm fine. I'm gonna go ahead and continue doing things. And we all like, you know, we don't want it to be the bad thing. We don't want it to be the scary thing. And so we create in our minds like, oh no, it can't be this. It can't be. I'm okay. Like, right? Because I think and like people have this perception of a stroke just being this huge crazy emergency, right? And well, that can't be what's happening. I don't see a crazy emergency. My arm just kind of funky. It's not working quite right. Um, and I think it becomes very easily to um, pass off symptoms like that, especially when you're otherwise feeling good and when you've been improving your health. So it was probably a big paradox in your own mind, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So describe for me what happened when you got to the hospital.
I walked in and they took me right back and they started doing the different tests. I couldn't, they had the test that I couldn't do was they had me touch my nose and then touch their finger. This, the left hand, I could do it fine. The right hand, I could not. And then I had to run my heel of my foot down the bottom part of my leg on the left heel on the right leg and the right leg on the left leg. I could not do the right leg. It was like a magnet was pushing it away. I was telling my brain was saying to go over to it, and it was just going away, just like it was being pushed away by a big magnet.
So what Germaine is describing here is something we do in the hospital called the National Institute of Health Stroke Scale. So NIHSS or NIS, as we call it in the ER. And the symptom that she's describing specific is called ataxia. So you're not able to move your body, that the limb that you're trying to move in the way that you want to move. So they do this thing where the doctor will like touch my nose or touch your nose, touch my finger, touch your nose, touch my finger. And she's able to do it with her right hand, but with her left hand, or the other way around, with her right hand, she's not able to. So she's doing this thing where she just misses the finger or she misses her nose. It's not going in the direction she wants it to. And same thing with her right leg, where you're supposed to rub your heel up and down your leg and see if you're, and that's basically from your ankle to your knee.
Right.
And your left leg does it fine. Your right leg, you can't even make it move in the direction you want. So that's when we do that scale, there's a number that comes out, and based on that number, we do certain treatments or we determine if you're getting better or worse over time. So what happened after that?
They admitted me.
Yeah. So did they put you on any medications, anticoagulants, anything like that?
No.
No. Um, and what did they just decided they're going to do an MRI, correct?
Right. That's what we were waiting for that day. It was a holiday weekend and there wasn't one available supposedly to the next day, but they got me to a different one in the hospital.
Okay, good. So yeah, usually what happens when somebody has a stroke, they bring them into the emergency department, they do a stroke assessment. If the symptoms were, acute or within the past 6 hours, we call a stroke alert. We send them to the CT scan immediately. We have the neurologist talk to the patient, and then we give a medication called tenecteplase or TNK, which actually breaks up the clots, a clot buster. That medication comes with a risk of brain bleeds, but if you're having a debilitating stroke, a lot of times if it's early enough, it increases the likelihood of that clot being broken up and restoring your function with that tiny bit of risk of brain bleeding. And if you have a brain bleed, then things can get much, much worse. So they always tell you, like, hey, if we give you this medication, this is the risk. In your case, you weren't within the window of having that medication. Outside of that window, the risk is not worth the benefit. So what we end up doing after that is we'll do a CT angio on that patient looking at the head, and we'll also do an MRI to actually see where the stroke happened. So in the CT scan, they saw some hyperdensities, which indicate there might be a stroke here. And in the MRI, they did in fact see the stroke area. And what did they recommend to you after all that?
Well, they told me that I had had a previous stroke, and they showed me on the MRI where the previous stroke was. They said it could have happened 6 days ago or 6 years ago. They
Wow.
can't tell. They just showed me the dead spot on my brain, which was frightening.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
bet.
the floor doctor said that either I take a statin or I die.
Wow.
And the cardiologist, I mean, not the cardiologist, the neurologist, he came in and he did explain everything to me and showed me where it was. And he said that I had to go, he goes, LDL causes strokes,
Mhm.
and your LDL caused your stroke. It's quote.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, he's trying to be very simplistic
Right,
because LDL doesn't cause strokes.
right.
A clot causes a stroke. Now, in conventional medicine, high LDL causes atherosclerosis, which makes you more prone to having a stroke. So that's basically what he was saying. Um, in your case, it sounds like you had a previous stroke at third, so you've had two strokes. Is that correct?
Right.
And you have no idea when the other one happened. You never felt any symptoms at any point.
Thinking back on it afterwards, I remember some point, and I can't even remember when, that I was signing into my accounts, and you would have to go get a little passcode, and it was 6 digits, and I had to write it down. I couldn't remember the 6 digits, and I said, "Wow, that's just really crazy. I can't remember these 6 digits." And eventually came back, but that's the only time I can think of any time that it could have happened.
Any idea what time frame that was?
But 4 years ago,
Okay, so who knows?
yeah,
Basically, obviously, we do know that you have had heart disease and you even had symptoms. You'd been having chest pains and stuff in the past, correct?
right,
When was
right.
that? When were you first experiencing those?
Um, they were just like flutters.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't, I had never went into AFib or anything like that. It was just a difference. Something was wrong.
Okay. Okay. So, you have experimented with a continuous glucose monitor, correct?
I loved it.
Really? How long? So, how long did you wear it?
When I was pre-diabetic,
Mhm.
and they said, so I had it for maybe a year, and I loved being able to see what made my glucose rise up. Things that I didn't know. So if I tried something new and it spiked my glucose, I stopped taking it. I mean, it was so beneficiary to me.
And how big of spikes were you getting?
Not bad. I really averaged around 90 to 110,
Hmm.
like during the day. Um, if I got a spike, I might go up to 140.
Okay. And you were eating keto during that whole time?
Yes.
Okay. Did you do any experiments of like, okay, I'm just gonna have a piece of bread and see what happens?
No.
No.
I had I ate out. I usually make all my food. I everything I eat, I make. So
Hmm.
I know what it is. And I went out to dinner, and they had chicken. So I had chicken. I had a half a chicken, it was smoked. And on the way home, I felt terrible. And I checked my glucose, and it was over 200.
Wow.
And I said, what? And I called the restaurant. And what happened was that my osteoarthritis, my finger bent. It was bent a little bit like this one, but it bent like a fourth of a degree more. The
Wow.
day after that, well, actually the day that I had that spike.
Wow. 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 So that really high blood glucose during that time just caused rampant inflammation in you.
Yes,
And when you think about it, your story begins with your arthritis
right.
and having pain all the time in your joints. Did you notice back before you went keto that eating certain foods would trigger your arthritis?
Never thought about it at all.
Weren't paying attention.
No,
And frankly, nobody does. Nobody does. Nobody connects like, hey, this thing that I ate really made me feel sick several hours later or the next day or even immediately afterwards. People, we tend to just go about our lives eating the things that we enjoy and complaining about the medical problems that we have, but never connecting the two things.
right,
Right.
right.
Um, so thinking about that and the fact that you were eating keto, so what year would that have been that you're using the CGM? Like a couple years ago?
It was probably maybe 2020.
2020. Oh, really? So way back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they weren't quite as readily available. Did you just buy it? How did you get yours?
I got mine because I was pre-diabetic and I got it okay through my general practitioner.
Okay, so they gave you a prescription for it.
Yeah.
Did you have to pay out of pocket?
No, my insurance covered it.
Well, that's surprising because usually insurance only covers it if you were diabetic and
Right.
on insulin.
Well, once I took it off, they took me off it, and then every time I tried to get it again, I couldn't get it.
Oh, wow. So at that point, they decided no more, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, fortunately, nowadays they're over the counter and people can buy them. The Dexcom Stelo is the one I use, and you can buy it online and order a 3 month subscription for it. Um, and it is a fantastic tool to figure out what things spike your glucose. So for you, going keto, now this is my entirely my speculation, but I imagine that going keto eliminated these high blood sugar spikes that you were getting that were causing your arthritis symptoms. And when you switch to a ketogenic low carb diet, you stop having these big glucose spikes. Right now, you're only going up to 140 as the max, and you don't really sound like you don't really deviate much from your diet.
No.
So that whole year you had the CGM, you weren't really experimenting. You're like, I'm just sticking with this diet. And the one time you deviated was unintentional and it sent you into the 200s. And that was with just chicken that had some sugar added to the brine or something like that.
Right.
So imagine what was happening prior to that when you were eating whatever, when you were eating
Right.
cereal and bread and pasta and all the things that I know spike my glucose into the 200s. So this is one of the things that I think a lot of people neglect to realize. Heart disease, vascular disease, strokes, heart attacks, they are all very, very, very closely linked with high blood glucose. And everybody knows that diabetes is the number one risk factor, right? We all know that. Like that's like the number one risk factor for heart disease. It's like far and above everything else. And what is the diabetes? It's a disease of high blood glucose. However, people don't realize that pretty much everybody in our modern society is experiencing high blood glucose frequently. It just doesn't chronically stay high. They eat, a bunch of French fries and a milkshake. It shoots up into the 200s, drops back down. They don't ever feel it. They don't ever realize it, but it is doing damage in that time period that it is high, that it's elevated. And, it is dose dependent. So the higher it goes, the worse it is. The longer it stays high, the worse it is. And what happens in our modern society is we're eating, all this sugar, all these refined carbohydrates. Your blood glucose is constantly spiking. Not only that, but there's plenty of studies out there to suggest that the degree of which the spike happens, so how high it goes and how frequently they happen. So if your glucose goes high and stays high, the oxidative stress is actually lower than if it goes high, then goes low, goes high, goes low, goes high, goes low. All that oscillating creates more oxidative stress in your vasculature. Like we can actually measure these things. So for you, it seems pretty clear that prior to going keto, you're having a lot of glucose issues, likely due to all kinds of different factors. If you're insulin resistant, you're more prone to glucose spikes. Certain genetics will leave you more prone to glucose spikes. Combination of the two things. You had some insulin resistance going on for sure, and perhaps maybe even some genetic factors that predispose you to high glucose spikes. But once you eliminated those, your arthritis symptoms got better.
Right.
And we saw your CAC decline. It first stabilized, then declined. Ultimately, you did end up having a stroke. But again, I say because you've done the work, you've had a great outcome. Doesn't mean you're out of the clear. Doesn't mean you're out of the woods. Did they put you on a blood thinner of any sort, aspirin?
Yes.
Okay, and you're taking the aspirin?
No, they put me on two of them, and
Plavix?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So they took me off the baby aspirin and kept me on the Plavix.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, and the fact of the matter is, if you've had a stroke and you're prone to clots and your heart disease isn't entirely reversed, or don't even think about his heart disease, but his brain disease as well. It's vascular disease. You know, things like Plavix can reduce the risk of having an acute clot happen. So people are, especially in our community, are still like against any sort of medications and conventional medicine, but conventional medicine has its place. It's very, very important. I work in conventional medicine. We do a lot of hard work for people who are actively having life-threatening problems and life-altering problems. In your case, it's all about reducing risk at this point. And, keeping the clot from happening is good. But did they tell you the risk of bleeding with the Plavix?
I have my little bracelet on now.
Good. So yes, if you're on any sort of blood thinner like Plavix or even aspirin, if you fall and hit your head or something like that, it creates a much greater risk of having something like a brain bleed or even a GI bleed or something like that. So always be aware of symptoms if you're having any sort of blood in your stool, or if you have a sudden headache or something like that, sudden blurry vision. If you fall and hit your head on these medications, you immediately need to go to the hospital. That's a big, big important thing that I want people to know.
Right. I usually hike every day, and they told me not to because I hike in the woods and I broke both wrists.
Oh,
So luckily this time of the year I swim every day instead of hiking.
mm-hmm.
So I'll have
Well,
to do.
you always have to balance life satisfaction with risk, right?
Right.
And you never want to be less happy to reduce risk by a little bit. So, I always advise people, make your own assessment on what you want to do. For somebody who is 66 years old, a woman, you've had a hysterectomy, bone health is essential. Muscular health, strength, building muscle, working out, and hiking is a great, great workout. And that is actually going to reduce a lot of risk. Now, there's a risk of hiking itself, right? Life comes with risks.
Right.
So you always have to be aware of that. And I think we all can be adults and make those assessments for ourselves. Wow. Wonderful story. Like, scary story, but seeing you here functioning well and not having any disability is fantastic. Again, that is as good as of an outcome as you could hope for a stroke. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, but I appreciate all your help that you've given me all along.
No problem. I mean, I appreciate you doing this because this is amazing. I think this is going to be really informative for people, maybe a little bit controversial, but either way, I think you are a fantastic example of what keto, what low carb, what diets that reduce your blood glucose spikes do to improve your health. And again, thank you so much for being brave and sharing this with people.
My pleasure. It was really nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you too. Let me cut the video right now.